All right, we're back here for round 5. After I took Cobb, Amendola, Chris Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Stephen Ridley, and Reggie Bush were the next picks made. And the more I think about it, the more I wish I kind of would have taken Chris Johnson in that spot. Wide receivers really deep. I mean, I don't think I would have gotten anybody on the level of Cobb coming back to me in this round, but I definitely wasn't going to get a running back who, in one quarterback leagues, is a second rounder in the 4th round, and definitely not in the 5th round. So the fact that he fell to me there in the 4th makes me think I should have pounced, because I would have had my running back spots locked up with 3 feature backs, Lynch, Morris, and Chris Johnson. Now, I can lament that fact, or I can respond to it and draft smarter and draft more accordingly going forward here, making sure I get guys that are the right pick, Roddy White and Andre Johnson were just selected to lead off the round. I'm coming back to quarterbacks now, and this is a spot where I feel I should probably take one in this round just to make sure I get a guy that I want. The ones I'm looking at are Eli Manning and Michael Vick. Now, normally when I do fantasy drafts, baseball, football, whatever, I mean, football is where this applies, but I don't care about schedule. And in football, that means I don't care about bye weeks. Now, in a 2-quarterback league, it matters a little bit more. You probably don't want your 2 starting quarterbacks to be on bye the same week, if only because with 10 teams, there's really no guarantee you're going to be able to get more than 3 quarterbacks in the draft. 10 teams times 3 QBs each is 30 quarterbacks. There are, 32 in the league? So to make sure you get 3 quarterbacks all with different bye weeks can set you up for success in the sense that when one of your guys is on bye, your bench guy fills in. And I don't know where Rodgers' bye is. Perhaps it'll tell me. Yep, it looks like week 4. The quarterbacks I'm looking at here are, well, I was looking at Eli Manning, but he was just selected. But Michael Vick, and his bye is in week 12. I do like Vick more than Dalton, Roethlisberger, and Cutler. Another guy I've been taking in a lot of drafts is Josh Freeman. He's a guy I'd like to get as maybe my quarterback 3. But in a 2 QB league, you kind of have to spend those middle round picks on running backs and wide receivers, and then pick up whoever's left for your bench quarterback, as it were, later on. So looking at the running backs available, there's McFadden, David Wilson, Lamar Miller, Frank Gore, Le'Veon Bell, Ryan Matthews, Monty Ball, Eddie Lacy, Gio Bernard. So a lot of upside here, but a lot of risk as well. If we look at the wide receivers, we'll see that guys like Victor Cruz, just selected, Vincent Jackson, Wes Welker, Dwayne Bowe, Hakeem Nicks, Colston, and Nelson were all available. So, and even going a little further down, you get down to the Pierre Garçon, Antonio Brown. So still some good wide receiver options available. I'm going to take Vic here because I do want to get my second quarterback locked up. And none of these other players are really pulling me to do otherwise. And I do think that if I take Vic here, I could start a run on QBs going around the horn here so that some of the running backs and wide receivers I want will make it back to me in the 6th round. Typically, 2-quarterback leagues see a lot more QBs go in the first 2 rounds, which means rounds 3, 4, and 5, managers try to play catch-up at wide receiver and running back. And at some point, somebody changes the tone of the draft and goes back to taking quarterbacks. And I'm hoping that I just did that, following up an Eli Manning pick with a Michael Vick pick. So perhaps these 4 teams that are drafting behind me will feel the pressure to get their second quarterback or even third quarterback before that position really dries up and you're looking at guys like Jake Locker and Brandon Weeden. But coming back to me, I will probably aim at a running back here. If David Wilson or Frank Gore or Le'Veon Bell or McFadden are there, I'll probably take one of them. I like Vereen in a PPR league. I like Bernard in a PPR league. Those are both guys I would think about here. Wide receivers, it's hard to go wrong with a guy like Vincent Jackson. I know PPR doesn't reward him quite as much, but big plays are big plays, and yardage and touchdowns still count for points in PPR leagues. So it's good. It's a good idea not to sleep on a guy like that too much. With that said, a guy like Reggie Wayne kind of bumps up in value in half-point PPR, and he's a guy we can think about with this upcoming pick as well. We seem to have a pause in the draft, so with that going on, I am going to pause myself, and I'll rejoin you in a moment for the 6th round. Well, we're back for the start of the 6th round here, and my plan to start a run on quarterbacks did not happen. In fact, a run on wide receivers has occurred after I took Victor Cruz, Vincent Jackson, David Wilson, who is admittedly a running back, Dwayne Bowe and Reggie Wayne were taken. So if anything, that makes me even more prone to taking a running back here. And of the guys available, Frank Gore is the guy that I would likely select if he makes it back to me here. There are still 3 picks before I come up, so I can definitely get swooped on that pick. But I don't know. The wide receiver options still available all seem a little flawed. I mean, not flawed, but not too exciting and not drastically better than some of the upside-ier, I just made up that word, guys like T.Y. Hilton, Cecil Shorts, Mike Williams down a little further in the ADP rankings here. I do only have one wide receiver, so it might be a good idea to get on a guy like Welker, Nix, or Colston. I'm not a Mike Wallace fan. I'm not a Torrey Smith fan. In fact, I would take Decker, Garcon, Antonio Brown over both of those guys. Frank Gore was just selected at 2nd pick of the 6th round, so I'm not going to get him. But, you know, a guy like Le'Veon Bell in this spot, a guy like McFadden. I mean, McFadden's risky, and I don't especially like him, but in the 6th round, I'm willing to take a chance on a guy like that, more so than maybe kind of hedging with a wide receiver. But I'd probably take a receiver here. I think Colston is the one I like the most, although I would be fine with Garcon or Nix or even Decker in this spot. I would not feel great about taking James Jones here because I already have Cobb and Rodgers. I feel like that might be putting a few too many eggs in the Green Bay Packers basket. All right, Nix was just selected. It's up to me here. I could go with Colston here, or I could go with, McFadden's probably the running back I like the most out of this group. I could look at tight ends as well. Witten, Davis, Tony Gonzalez. Witten's not a bad pick in this spot because it is half-point PPR, and he is going to catch a ton of passes. He does pretty much every year. But I am a firm proponent of waiting on tight end. And, yeah, you know what? I'm going to get my 2nd wide receiver on the board and hope to land one of those quote-unquote upside-ier running backs with my next pick if possible. So, Marquez Colston, welcome to the team. We'll write him in here on my little draft sheet. I find it's a good idea sometimes doing online fantasy drafts to actually get out a piece of paper and a pen and write out your roster. It'll help you keep track of who you have, where you're slotting those players. Because oftentimes when you do these drafts, this is more prevalent to fantasy baseball or fantasy basketball. It'll just put a player into like an arbitrary spot on your lineup. Like it'll put a guard forward into your shooting guard spot when maybe you would plan to use that player in your small forward spot, for example, with fantasy basketball. It doesn't matter in football as much because the flexes are wide receiver running back or wide receiver running back tight end, and there are fewer positions and players only play one position, so it's a little easier to slot them in. But I don't know. I think it's a good habit to have. It helps keep track of your team. I'm going to pause here again, and I'll rejoin you in a minute.